Make sure your hard-boiled egg is beautifully cooked, and I have so many bad hard-boiled egg experiences. When you cut into your hard-boiled egg tonight to wedge it for our salad, it should look really beautiful. The yolk should not be crumbly and just fall away from the white. The yolk should actually still be moist enough to stick against the white, even if you're going to cut through it. So I don't just put my eggs in a pan of boiling water and walk away. You actually really need to pay attention if you want them to be perfect, and do them like this from this day forward, always. And don't argue with me. And this is one time where I'm putting my foot down. There's always someone who's like, well, I do it in the microwave for 6 minutes and then put them on the still. Like, okay, but here's my method. Here's our method. This is the method I learned in school. Put your eggs in a saucepan, cover them with enough water to cover them. Doesn't need to be a ton of water. Make sure you're covering them. Remember, it's cold water at this point. I'm not putting them into boiling water. This is the first. This is where someone will say, well, wait a minute. Bring them to a boil together. When I say boil, look for big rolling bubbles, not just a simmer. And that's what we're going to watch for, is a boil. When you have big rolling bubbles on the surface, you know the heat needs to go off. Throw a lid over your pot, slide the pot off the heat. Don't let it sit on your heating element, and set a timer. And really set a timer. If you want perfectly cooked hard-boiled eggs here, 11 minutes. From the moment the lid goes on. So they come to a big boil. If you want to let them boil for a minute, that's fine. It's not really going to change much. Throw the lid on, 11 minutes. When your timer goes off, cold water. Either throw them into ice water or just drain them and run cold water in the sink and let them cool as quickly as possible. It's all written down for you on page 8. That's it. Some people like kind of the half-cooked egg, where it still has liquid yolk but set white, and you kind of tap the shell off and serve it that way. You have it all written down for you as far as time. We're going to go tonight to the full 11-minute mark. But again, make sure your water is actually boiling. They'll be perfect. Every time. But I shouldn't say perfect every time. It depends on where you are in the world. 11 minutes is great in Boulder. 11 minutes is too much in Chicago because of altitude. Water is hotter in Chicago at a boil than here, so it's less time.
Is this for large?
It doesn't really matter the size. I mean, if you're doing like large eggs, ostrich eggs, quail eggs, it should be basically about the same. The little, I mean, it depends on the size. If they're tiny, probably less. More like 8 minutes. I've never really practiced with that. Hard boiling. I usually keep my quail eggs soft and poached. Any questions on that? I know I talked a lot about it, but it's important. There's nothing worse than, you know, when you get that gray-green kind of discoloration between the yolk and the white. You've gone about an hour and a half too far. Maybe not an hour and a half, but beyond the point that you need to go. And you also don't want them sitting in boiling water too long, because they're going to start breaking They're going to start breaking one another apart. And then the next question you're all going to say is, how do you peel the egg? So you want to make deviled eggs, or you want the perfect peeled egg for presentation. How do you do it? There's no. Everyone has their own little. Victoria just did this. She rolls hers on the counter. I run mine under cold water when I'm doing it. The older the egg, the better it will peel. Because as the egg ages, that thin membrane right beneath the shell thickens. And that, if you have a thick membrane, that's what peels the egg beautifully. There's nothing better than getting the perfect peeled egg. That's an older egg. So if you want to make a nice big platter of deviled eggs, do you all know what I mean by that? You cut them in half, and you put the yolk with all that other yummy stuff, and you put it back into half. Age your eggs. So if I know I really need 12 eggs that I want them to be perfectly peeled, I'll set 12 eggs aside in my refrigerator and give them 2 weeks, and then hard boil them. And they'll peel a lot better. I know that sounds kind of gross, age your eggs. Fresh farm eggs are impossible to peel. There's no getting around it. I can't do it.
Does letting them rest at all after you've hard boiled them make any difference?
I don't think so, because again, it's just a matter of that membrane. I mean, when they're cool, definitely that makes a difference. I wouldn't try to do it when they're hot, but I don't think letting them sit in the shell. I've not tried like overnight. Maybe that makes a difference. As far as I know, I don't think so. Some people will tell me like, I put salt in the water, I put acid in the water. That really makes no sense. That's not doing anything to the inside of your